12 in the can, and each one more important than the last. In to assess the playoff picture, that's Jonathan Jones, Bryant McFadden, Emery Hunt, Joe Musso, your host, and fellas, for the first time in some time, a new team sitting at number one in the NFC. The Los Angeles Rams with the win, the Philadelphia Eagles with the loss. Some trading places here, Mac, as we assess those two sides right now, and you sort of power rank in your mind through 12 weeks the strength of the NFC. How far is that berth in your eyes between LA and everybody else?
I think there's a significant gap in terms of separation with the Rams and the rest of the NFC in terms of playoff contention because of their balance and how well their quarterback is playing in Matthew Stafford. Once again, an outstanding MVP-like performance from Matthew Stafford. Defensively, that front has been tremendous, and because of their success in the front, it has allowed the guys in the secondary to play lights out also. Not to mention their head coach in Sean McVay. I think he's the best head coach in the NFC currently. I think he's been able to do more with less, but this year they have talent. This might be one of the more talented teams we've seen from Sean McVay, with Sean McVay out in the Rams in years past. So when you factor all of that into the equation for me, I think there's a significant gap between the Rams and the rest of the NFC.
Emery, in an effort to close that gap or get back to that mantle that they've established for so long now, Philadelphia, we talked a little bit earlier in the day about a wake-up call required. Does something like this sort of change, maybe serve as the smelling salts to say, hey, fellas, execution needs to ramp back up to that level that we have established?
It has to, because I think the difference between the Rams and the Eagles right now, and also the Bears, who I had as the number 2 seed going into the season, is consistency. That's the difference to me when we're talking about why the Rams are clear-cut number one in the NFC. They are the most consistent on both sides of the ball. The Eagles, this week it's the offense, next week it's the defense. Rarely is it, together at the same time. And I know people will look at that and say, well, they beat the Rams. Yeah, but you kind of look at how they beat the Rams and what have they done since then. The Rams are the most consistent. The Eagles have to drum up that consistency in order for us to respect that, like we did last year when we was like clear-cut, nobody's beating Philadelphia.
Yeah, well, the fact is they did beat the Rams. And the fact is that the Eagles did beat the Rams in the playoffs last time. And so we don't have to kind of play these hypotheticals, right? Like, oh boy, if the Rams see the Eagles again in the playoffs, what's going to happen? We've now seen it twice. And the Eagles get it done. Look, I'm not saying that it absolutely happens a third time, but right now, if you have the Rams and the Eagles playing in the NFC Championship game, that game is going to be in Inglewood, California. That game is going to be overtaken in the stands by Philadelphia Eagles fans. And so that will be, at best, a neutral site game for the LA Rams against a team that very clearly has their number. The LA Rams, when you look at their record the last 2 years against every team that is not based in Philadelphia, it's really good. And when you look at them against NFL teams that happen to be based in Philadelphia, they're winless. And so that is the one team, while I agree with all of you, that if you just roll the football out there and you say, who's the best team in the NFC right now? I would say the Rams. Their kryptonite, though, is the Eagles.
It'll be interesting to see how it plays out as we assess 1 to 2, but we will get a very clear data point on 2 versus 3 in the NFC with that Black Friday game coming between the Philadelphia Eagles and the Chicago Bears. As someone who has been mired in the recent history and the last 35 years of the Chicago Bears, interesting to see them at that position as well. I want to take us to the back end of this NFC playoff picture because a new and very interesting entrant in the Dallas Cowboys making their case following that come-from-behind win, Emery, over the Philadelphia Eagles. Not really a whole lot of room for wobble at this point, and that 21-point deficit looked like it might spell the season. What did this Sunday mean to Dallas, and how do you project them moving forward?
This was a huge win for Dallas because we saw them get it done in an adverse situation, a game that the Cowboys would have normally lost. I mean, you talk about down 21-0, turn the ball over at crazy, inopportune times, missing field goals. But all of that is the reason why they got back in the ball game and also subsequently won the game. So when we know their offense is great, we know their defense is what it is, and we know they have a great returner in Cavante Turpin. We know they have a great kicker as well. So going into this back into the schedule, they're playing better defense each week. They have good special teams. They have an offense that can score. All of that screams the Cowboys are trying to find their sea level, and they're both balanced now, and they have the confidence of beating Philadelphia.
It's a great point. The offense has been this. They've established a certain standard this year. Mac, the defense is coming along, and that's really where this real belief comes from.
That's the most encouraging thing that we watch with the Dallas Cowboys, fighting from behind to beat the Philadelphia Eagles, is they finally learned how to win. they've been learning how to lose ball games, right? Against teams that we felt like they should beat, a la the Arizona Cardinals and at that time the Carolina Panthers. But in that matchup against the Eagles, they found a way to win, and it was solely about their defense keeping them afloat until the offense came to the party. And that's the most scary thing about the Dallas Cowboys. If they can get into the playoffs, we know they have a high-level championship caliber offense. But if the defense can just be a serviceable unit, you don't have to be lights out and be the monsters of the midway or the steel curtain. Just be a serviceable unit. You can do numbers. And when you look at their schedule, guys, I mean, the next 3-game stretch for me, realistically speaking, I think worst case scenario, they need to be 2-1. Worst case scenario. Ideally, you want to be 3-0 in that 3-game stretch, but that's a tough 2 coming out the gate with Kansas City and Detroit. But if they can be 2-1, Joe, the rest of the way, I think they still have a legit chance to get into the playoffs.
The problem is that one could be the only one. There is literally no room to wiggle in this NFC wildcard picture. Is this something real, or when you start doing the math, a JoJo special? No, it's just too little too late.
Yeah, it's hard because when you consider it, they're not going to win the division, right? The Eagles are still going to win the division. I think we all believe that.
Correct.
And so now you're fighting for a wild card spot. Well, one wild card spot is going to go to an NFC West team, at least one, right? I think we also believe that at least one is going to go to an NFC North team, right? So now you have one wild card spot, and you are competing with some collection of Seahawks, Niners, Lions, and then you are there at the
Panthers.
Cowboys. Panthers, right? But there's going to be
Packers, Bears, depending on how that matriculates over the back end of the schedule.
So you say worst case scenario 2-1. You know, I think for the psyche of this team, that one better not be Thursday against the Kansas City Chiefs. That is a huge, huge game for both of these teams, right? Because you want to start getting the ball rolling, right? It's a short week. It's going to be difficult. Everyone's watching you. You want to get the ball rolling going into December. If you lose that game and you're looking at your playoff odds and everybody else knows what's going on, that's going to hurt. So that game is significant, obviously for both teams, but also, of course, for both playoff pictures.
All right, let's transition to the AFC side here because this is going to put the Wild in wild card. I think in the business world, they call it churn. We might be set for a good amount of churn in those final 3 seeds in the AFC. When you look at those in the hunt right now, JJ, you look at those in the picture and what could happen at the tops of divisions. What team interests you the most, maybe outside looking in or inside that might be headed out?
I'll tell you what, the Houston Texans really interest me. And they interest me because this offense is starting to figure out who they are. And everyone, a couple games into the season, wanted to fire Nick Caley, the offensive coordinator. Said that this Frankenstein's monster of the Patriots and the Rams system that he had put together for C.J. Stroud clearly wasn't working. And now they've won 3 straight. And yes, they've done it without C.J. Stroud, whom they should be getting back. They've been doing it with Davis Mills. But most
There are moments in a season when a team either folds under the weight of everything collapsing around them, or they rise, claw their way out of the grave everyone prepared for them, and remind the world that heart still matters in this league. On Sunday afternoon, the Dallas Cowboys delivered one of those moments. They didn't just beat the Philadelphia Eagles. They didn't just come back from a 21-0 deficit. They walked into halftime beaten, doubted, buried by analysts everywhere, and walked out refusing to die. What happened in that second half was not luck. It was not fluke. It was a surge of pride, grit, and absolute refusal to quit. It was the embodiment of what Cowboys fans have begged this team to show all season, the will to fight. Down 21-0, missed opportunities, a flat, uninspired first half. The Eagles cruising, fans in Philly celebrating early, and national media piling on the same old narratives about Dallas collapsing again. But then, something changed. Something snapped in that locker room. Whether it was Dak Prescott's leadership, the defensive line challenging each other, or the realization that the season was hanging by a thread, the Cowboys came out with fire we haven't seen in months. From the first snap of the third quarter, there was a different tempo, a different focus, a different swagger. Dallas went on a 24-0 run, closing the gap, punching back, controlling the line of scrimmage, and completely suffocating Philadelphia's offense. And when the game came down to one play, one kick, one chance to silence an entire division, Dallas delivered. Time expired. Ball through the uprights. Cowboys win. Suddenly, 5-5-1. Suddenly, playoff hopes still flickering. Suddenly, NFL analysts forced to admit that this Cowboys team still has life. And make no mistake, this wasn't just a win. This was a statement. A psychological blow to a division rival, the type of game that changes chemistry inside a locker room and changes the narrative outside of it. Now let's be honest, at 5-5-1, the odds are not pretty. According to Kalshi, Dallas sits at a 17% chance to make the postseason. 17%. That alone is enough for every national analyst to laugh off this team entirely. It's the kind of number people point to and say, see, they're done. But as Cowboys Nation knows better than anyone, the number that matters most is the number on the scoreboard. And that scoreboard just showed Dallas beating a division rival with one of the biggest comebacks of the NFL season. But here's where things get really interesting. Despite the low odds, despite the stacked NFC standings, despite no help from other teams around the league this weekend, the Cowboys have a massive opportunity sitting right in front of them. A win this week against the Kansas City Chiefs would rocket those odds upward. We're talking a dramatic shift, the kind of swing that takes a season from barely breathing to fully alive. And this time, it doesn't feel impossible. Because this is not the same Cowboys team we saw in September. This is not the same defense that was getting gashed, bullied, and embarrassed for 2 straight months. The addition of Quinnen Williams has transformed the identity of this team. For the first time all season, Dallas has a defensive presence in the trenches that demands respect. Williams has not only plugged gaps, pressured quarterbacks, and disrupted everything in front of him, he has elevated the players around him. Osa Odedi-Izua is playing freer. Kenneth Clark is recovering his rhythm. Linebackers are attacking downhill with confidence, knowing the middle is no longer soft. We saw it against the Raiders in Week 11. We saw it even more against the Eagles in Week 12. And now, against the Kansas City Chiefs, the Cowboys will face a team missing one of their key offensive linemen. Trey Smith being ruled out gives Dallas even more room to exploit weaknesses and force Patrick Mahomes into rush decisions. That's not nothing. That's opportunity. Real opportunity. Now let's talk offense, because the world saw something on Sunday that should terrify defensive coordinators. George Pickens has fully arrived. Not as a complimentary piece, not as a long-term project, but as a true explosive weapon who changes the geometry of the field. His combination of size, speed, body control, and pure football aggression is giving Dallas a vertical presence they haven't consistently had in years. Pair that with CeeDee Lamb returning from injury and slowly climbing back into form, and suddenly this offense has the firepower to score with anyone. Lamb and Pickens combined for 210 yards and 2 touchdowns against Philadelphia. And Dak Prescott, for all the criticism thrown his way, delivered. He led, he commanded, he stayed calm in the storm. For the second straight week, he put together one of the sharpest stretches of football he has played this season. When Dak plays with this kind of rhythm, this kind of confidence, this kind of precision, Dallas is dangerous. Very dangerous. And as strange as it sounds, this team seems to respond the most when everything is on the line, when everyone counts them out. When analysts mock them, when fans brace for the collapse, that's when they punch back. And right now, they don't just need to punch back, they need to throw haymakers. Because Thanksgiving is coming, because Patrick Mahomes is coming, because that stadium will be loud, emotional, and pressurized, because the entire country will be watching, and because a win will change absolutely everything. This game is not just a game, it is the pivot point of the season. If Dallas wins, the narrative shifts instantly. Suddenly 17% becomes something real. Suddenly the numbers start climbing. Suddenly every team in the NFC starts paying attention again. Suddenly this Cowboys team is not a French contender, but a fighter with its gloves back on. And don't underestimate momentum. Momentum is real. Momentum changes seasons. Momentum creates belief, and belief fuels chemistry. Chemistry fuels execution, and execution wins games when the margin for error is razor thin. If Dallas handles business against the Kansas City Chiefs, the run is on. With Detroit coming, with a softer schedule ahead, this team could absolutely win 4 out of their next 5. They could absolutely enter the final stretch in full contention. They could absolutely make noise. The question now is simple. Do the Cowboys believe? Do they truly understand what is in front of them? Do they embrace the pressure or run from it? Because Sunday against Philly told us something important. This team has fight. This team has resilience. This team is still alive. And now, Cowboys Nation, The question is whether they can take that spark and turn it into something bigger. For the first time all year, for the first time in months, Dallas looks like a team that remembers who they can be. A team with a defense that's finally waking up, an offense that's finally explosive again, and a locker room that refuses to let the season die quietly. So now I turn it over to you, Cowboys Nation. Do you believe this team can make the run? Do you believe this defense is rising at the perfect moment? Do you believe Dak, Pickens, Lamb, and Quinnen Williams can carry this team into December with fire? Let me know in the comments below. Hit the like button if you felt this comeback the way we all did, and make sure to subscribe to Cowboys Nation Report so you don't miss a single update, breakdown, or reaction. This season isn't over. Not yet. And Dallas just reminded the entire NFL why you never count them out.